Dave Ramsey from 6 till 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by the Duck Hunter. A trial has been scheduled for a 35-year-old Logan man charged with allegedly sexually abusing two young girls while babysitting them at his home. Nelson Neves was originally booked into the Cache County Jail in December, where he's being held without bail. Neves participated in a virtual preliminary hearing in First District Court Monday afternoon. He was previously charged with 2 counts of aggravated sexual abuse of a child and 1 count of sodomy of a child, all first-degree felonies, along with 1 count of rape of a child, a second-degree felony. Public Defender Mike McGinnis asked for the 4-day jury trial after previous attempts to negotiate a plea agreement were unsuccessful. The trial was scheduled for February 1st through 4th. According to an arrest report, Logan City police officers received a complaint of child sex abuse after one of the alleged victims, a 4-year-old girl, told her mother how Neves molested and videoed her naked. The girl referred to it as a game the suspect would play with her. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight. Patchy smoke, partly cloudy skies. The overnight low tonight in the mid-50s. And then for tomorrow, sunny skies, patchy smoke into the lower 80s. And then Thursday night, partly cloudy, a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms Thursday night. Mostly sunny. Friday around 80 for the high. It's been to 80 this afternoon. It's 79 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry, located at 500 East, 900 North in Logan, and the Brigham City location, 1st East and 7th South. The cleanest spot in town, Mount Logan Laundry.
Believe it or not, a high-quality furnace air filter will reduce the amount of dust and pollen carelessly floating around in your home. John at the Duck Hunter says, always buy a higher quality air filter. If you can see through a filter, you probably should pass on it. If you're not sure about which furnace air filter to buy, give John a call. He only carries the highest quality, which will reduce the dust and pollen in your home. For a free consultation, call the Duck Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duck Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
KVNU News Time is 5:07. In the midst of Utah's surging coronavirus cases, Governor Spencer Cox sounded a warning about the state's dwindling number of hospital beds during a Tuesday morning media conference.
We find ourselves at the breaking point of our hospitalizations. Now, like all of you, we're sad that we're here. We're disappointed that we're here. We wished we were not here. We don't have to be here, but we are here. And if there's any good news over the past 3.5 weeks, it's that we have seen more and more people getting vaccinated. And we know that vaccinations are the best way to prevent hospitalization.
And the governor delivered a message to the state's healthcare workers.
We are grateful for your sacrifice and your service. And I'm sorry that you are going through this again. My heart breaks for you, for the difficulties that you are facing, for the long nights and the hopelessness as you continue to deliver the best and most professional care anywhere in the world.
And, of course, yesterday about this time, it came out from Logan Regional Hospital that they were out of room as far as the ICU and the medical unit is concerned because of the crush of COVID-19 cases. And a federal appeals court's decision allowing a Texas fetal heartbeat law to take effect on Wednesday is not enough to trigger Idaho's similar fetal heartbeat law, but backers say it's a near miss that bodes well for banning nearly all abortions in Idaho. The Idaho law, signed by Governor Brad Little in April, contains a trigger mechanism, putting it into effect 30 days after a federal appeals court upholds similar legislation in another state. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals refused to block enforcement of the Texas law, but the appeals court did not rule on the constitutionality of the Texas law needed to trigger the Idaho law. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Adams Wealth Advisors' entire team says, thank you, Cache Valley, for voting them the best financial planner in the Best of Northern Utah competition. Honesty and integrity is the hallmark of Adams Wealth Advisors. Let them earn your trust today.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today. Please see adamswealthadvisors.com for more information on these recent awards.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Thursday on This Morning, America's First News. Democrats in their home districts are giving Republicans in Washington a political opening on Afghanistan. We'll explain. Also, there's a growing divide among fans at outdoor sporting events over masks. Oregon is presenting plenty of evidence. And how many emails in your inbox is too many? Thursday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
These are the sounds of a dinner. A dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. Wednesday, September 1st. Welcome to September, everyone. Coming up, a report on deaths from official American Medical Association report they do every year, reporting on deaths from 2020. It's shocking and not surprising at all. We'll talk about that later on. A takeaway I had after a conversation with Governor Cox on social media relating to something we talked about yesterday. The governor kind of stepped in it yesterday. He's acknowledged that, and, he was talking about it a little bit, and I made an observation online about what I thought the governor was trying to say yesterday when he made a bad comparison of people who, what he called extreme maskers versus the anti-mask crowd. That's what people are mad at him for, and he acknowledged it was poorly worded, but his point is really a good point. So I mentioned that. I said, I think this is what the governor was trying to say, and we should probably talk about that. And the governor responded to me and said, that is what I was trying to say. Obviously, I could have said it better. But his point is kind of worth discussing, too. And it relates to, how we talk about things, but also how we think about things as human beings and understanding that as we discuss policy in response to the pandemic. The short version, I guess I would say, is people need hope. And if the primary concern right now, Utah has two primary concerns. Two really pressing issues. Should kids who can't be vaccinated be wearing masks in school? Everyone agrees yes. The reason we were able to keep schools open last year, obviously everyone agrees, was mask mandates. The legislature has effectively banned them by putting the decision in the hands of what in a lot of areas of the state are the most political elected representatives out there. There's pressure on the governor and the legislature to roll that back. The end game bill was passed at a time when everyone thought we were running out of this pandemic. Well, the Delta variant changed that, and the governor said yesterday lawmakers need to act, and they're refusing to. He basically put it all on them, fairly, I think. So they're meeting and discussing this week. Who knows what will come of that? Columnist of the Salt Tribune, Robert Gehrke, covered the legislature for about 20 years as a journalist before becoming a columnist. He says nothing's going to happen with this. The legislature is buried in its ideology, and they're more concerned about the politics of this than the kids. I don't know that I'm that cynical, though I can see how he is because we've seen him do that before. All that aside, though, the governor made some remarks yesterday basically trying to say, look, if we're telling people, everybody put your masks back on everywhere you go until the end of the year, it's also very hard to turn to them and say, hey, getting vaccinated is a good idea, which is what the state's really focused on right now, the governor said. If instead you turn to people and say, look, we're going to ask kids to put their masks on if they're under the age of 12 for 30 days or a couple of months or the first semester of school, and we're going to ask adults who can get vaccinated to go do so to protect the kids, that message is probably going to achieve a lot more than the first one. That was the governor's point. But we'll talk about how this played out online and even in media reports. I don't know what the big takeaway is. I don't know if it's a takeaway about how the media talks about things, chasing sensational headlines, or if it's the knee-jerk reaction of the social media age when everyone likes to pile on and have fun, I guess, with a pile-on, which I think is also human nature in some way. Anyway, we'll talk about it and see what listeners think. But to start things off here, just some random headlines from around the state that have caught my eye. This is COVID-19 related, but it's really interesting because it gets into some of the long-running trajectory of COVID-19 spread here in Utah, and it's something that kind of gets lost in all this. Check it out. I've linked to the story on our Facebook page. But as the Utah Department of Health made their report today, there were some things they pointed out. And primarily that the fact that the new COVID-19 cases, they're at a level not seen since late January, early February of this year, the worst here in Utah. But it's this new variant. There's concern that another variant could come along. There are others out there. This is the one that has taken hold because it spread so quickly. And in the midst of all this, an observation, basically, by of all people, an entertainment columnist at the Salt Lake Tribune. And it reminded me of our conversation with Carrie Fuhrer earlier this week from the Utah Department of Transportation's Highway Safety Office, or Department of Public Safety's Highway Safety Office, basically. And towards the end of the interview, Carrie said, I asked her about the 100 deadliest days of summer. She said that report won't be out until after Labor Day. That's the tradition. She wouldn't give us any hints about how the summer went as far as fatalities on Utah's roadways. But she did say that things have been weird. She said that in 2021 there had been more incidents of road rage, more tickets written for driving at excess speeds, more accidents that were a result of road rage or excess speeds, more bizarre incidents on the freeway of weapons being brandished, cans being thrown from cars. I mean, she just kept saying it's been a really weird year. Entertainment columnist of Salt Lake Tribune, Shelley Mesh, said that she took this and she kind of ran with it, and she said, anxiety is high. Anxiety has been high for years. For some people, she pointed out, the last presidential term, from the election to the next, was a time of anxiousness. Then you throw a pandemic on top of that. Afghanistan in the news again, and we're hearing about the Taliban, and we're talking about terrorism again, and we have the same old faces that have kind of, propped up and made excuses for this 20-year war that really achieved nothing, which many people were saying would be the case when it started. They're back on CNN, their faces plastered everywhere, saying the same thing. And she pointed out, she said, this wears on people. even if a person isn't very political, it wears on them, and anxiety is high. And people get sick of hearing the same things over and over. It becomes white noise for some. It becomes a trigger of almost rage for others. And if you look at productivity reports from chambers of commerce and other economic analysis from around the country and here in Utah, if you look at the rate of people quitting jobs, of starting new jobs, but also quitting jobs, if you look at divorce rates, if you look at she said all of this is pointing in a direction that could easily be summed up as people are stressed. They're anxious. They've had enough. Even apolitical people, and regardless of political people, regardless of which way they lean. She had the simplest solution. Go do something fun. Find something fun, whether it's a walk on your lunch break or an evening walk into the mountains near a river, whether it's taking the dog to the dog park, whether it's maybe catching a movie, maybe it's going and sitting somewhere and listening to a few of your favorite songs from your favorite band. She said, we don't hear this message enough. We're not told enough by our political leaders, by our bosses, by our parents, by our children, our own family, our spouses. We don't encourage each other enough in this way, she said, to just turn to each other and say, hey, you look like you need to take a breath. Why don't you hop in the car, go do what you need to do for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. I'll handle everything here at home. I'll handle everything here at the workplace. Don't worry about the news headlines. In fact, turn them off for a couple of hours. You're okay to do that. Mesh writes that this is something that's easy to forget in this day and age when we're always being pushed to do more, to achieve more, and we self-impose those things if others aren't imposing them on us. She said, considering the last few years we've had and everything we're seeing in the news today again and will tomorrow, honestly, we need to remind ourselves and remind everybody we care about that it is really okay. It's even important to step away a little bit, take a break, and you don't need to have an excuse to do it. It's a really cool column. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of that, those negative headlines, ironically, here on KVNU's For the People.
Hey, it's Al Lewis. It's finally summertime, but if you struggle with CPAP, you might not be getting the sleep you need to get outside and enjoy your favorite summer activities. Fortunately, there's a treatment that will give you the sleep you dream of called Inspire. It works inside your body with just the click of a remote. Learn more at InspireSleep.com. Inspire Sleep Apnea Innovation. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Hi, this is Eric Franson, Vice President of Cache Valley Media Group. We love supporting local business and are proud to support the new Center Street Market in downtown Logan. It's every Wednesday during the summer. Beginning Wednesday, May 12th, Center Street Market opens at 8 a.m. and all the merchants will be local businesses from right here in Cache Valley. Cache Valley Media Group invites everyone to the Center Street Market in downtown Logan.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Hey, Joe, I thought you were retired.
Living on a fixed income is tough. So here I am, an essential worker.
I know. I mean, food prices are going up every day. Thank goodness for benefitscheckup.org.
Benefits what?
benefitscheckup.org. It's a free website where people over 60 can find help to pay for food, medicine, even utilities. I got $1,200 a year in benefits. Maybe it can help you.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I'm Jason Williams. Two announcements coming up just, just in between hours here and in between the break. Good announcements, I think. The first is Congressman Blake Moore will be joining us for a town hall here on our airwaves Thursday, September 30th. We've been talking about this last month. If you remember, Congressman Moore had 2 town halls he had to cancel recently due to the House being called back in for a vote and called back into session, cutting their August break short. He's promised, his staff said they'll be rescheduling those town halls. They were unfortunately both the town halls here in Cache County and in Box Elder County that were canceled due to the timing there. That was the day he had to head back. They were able to continue on with town halls in other parts of the district, Summit County and elsewhere. So they'll be rescheduling those town halls in Cache and Box Elder County. But probably before that's able to happen, they're going to do this town hall with us here. We've done this about every other month since Congressman Moore was elected, and we really appreciate him doing that with us because, one, it's fun for me and hopefully for him, but 2, it's also great for listeners. It's great for Cache Valley, for Box Elder County, Rich County, anywhere in the district that someone might be listening, because like the Direct Link with Governor Cox event that runs throughout the state, it's unscripted. The questions come from you. Of course, Congressman Moore and I would have plenty to talk about if no one called. There's always something going on. But we invite listeners to sort of drive the conversation with their questions during these radio town halls. So that's coming up Thursday, September 30th here on KVNU, which is just a few days before we'll also be hosting the candidate forum at Logan City Municipal Council Chambers for the municipal races there in Logan City. So back-to-back weeks of live events for you to be a part of. Another announcement here that just popped up. This is actually something that popped up on Twitter. The announcement coming from Representative John Curtis, and he announced about 15 minutes ago that Utah officially welcomed the first of what Representative Curtis and Governor Cox and others have said will be many refugees from Afghanistan that Utah will welcome with open arms. This is really cool, though, because we know a little bit about this refugee. The refugee, again, the first official Afghan refugee to come from Afghanistan after that Taliban takeover and U.S. withdrawal, is actually an air traffic controller who for years has been working, an Afghan who's been working with the U.S. military and NATO forces at various air bases for years, working with U.S. military at air bases in Afghanistan, and of course would be someone literally hunted right now by the Taliban. Instead, whisked off in a plane as part of that American that rescue effort, they were calling it, to get refugees who had helped U.S. forces who would be targets of Taliban payback. That was the fear, at least. Get them out of the country by August 31st. The president said yesterday, President Biden said that all but about 200 Americans and allies were left behind, and that they were making arrangements to get them out. Those 200 people had the same opportunity as others, the president said, but for whatever reason decided not to take it. Still going to be trying to get them out, but otherwise more than 50,000. Yeah, just amazing. The planes over and over and over leaving Afghanistan for a few weeks there. And just kind of a personal twist on who it is we're talking about. Again, this first official refugee from Afghanistan landing in Utah here today, announced by Representative John Curtis about 15 minutes ago. And this is an Afghan man who was for years an air traffic controller working with U.S. military and NATO forces on various U.S. bases throughout Afghanistan. So very, very nice that Utah can welcome that person and give them a safe place to start life over. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:29, and the news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. Animal services workers see a lot of dogs and cats, but on Tuesday they got to handle something a little bit longer. Animal officers from Sandy brought in a snake that measured 5 feet, according to Sandy City Animal Services. KUTV reports the reptile that eats rodents or other small animals was found in the area not too far from the Dimple Dell Park. Sandy Animal Services identified it as a boa and asked that the owner of the snake contact the shelter to pick it up. The snake is not native to Utah and is almost certainly a pet that escaped. The cold-blooded creature would not survive Utah's cold weather without human help. Boas and pythons are good non-poisonous pest hunters that are harmless to humans. A 32-year-old was shot in the leg Tuesday night in Liberty Park and is in serious condition as police comb the area for a suspect. Reports were that the shooting victim appeared to be okay as he was taken to a hospital. Police were looking for a white man with dark hair wearing a black hoodie. He is said to have a beard and a backpack. Police said they were not yet sure about a motive, but said it happened in a place in the park where there is frequent illegal camping. A semi-truck loaded with pipe rolled on SR 56 west of Cedar City Tuesday afternoon. Fox 13 reports the large load of pipe broke free and hit 2 other cars. The driver of one of the cars suffered critical injuries and was flown to a hospital. The driver of the other car received minor injuries and was taken by ambulance to a hospital. The truck navigated a corner too quickly, according to Joe Doherty, a spokesperson for the Utah Department of Public Safety. The accident happened just before 2 p.m., and the roadway was shut down for about a half an hour for life flight to land. The Utah Highway Patrol is investigating the accident. Idaho Governor Brad Little is calling in 220 medical workers available through federal programs and mobilizing 150 National Guard soldiers to deal with a surge in unvaccinated COVID-19 patients who are overwhelming the state's hospitals. The governor said Tuesday that the moves are a last-ditch effort to avoid activating for the first time statewide crisis standards of care that could force medical professionals to decide who lives and who dies. The last week has seen about 1,000 newly confirmed COVID-19 cases per day, most of them unvaccinated. Little says only 4 intensive care unit beds were available in the entire state of Idaho on Tuesday. And a Connecticut woman has been sentenced to 7 days in jail and is banned from Yellowstone National Park for 2 years after other tourists captured photos and video of her walking on thermal features in the Norris Geyser Basin. The 26-year-old woman pleaded guilty to a petty offense, foot travel in thermal areas, and was sentenced to a week in jail. She was also fined $1,000 in order to make a $1,000 community service payment. Park officials say the boardwalks are in place to protect the delicate thermal features and to protect visitors from falling into scalding water. The woman was sentenced on August 18th. KVNU News Time is 5:33.
Want to improve the look and comfort of your home? See all the possibilities at U&I Furniture. Update your mattress and sleep better tonight on a Therapeutic Queen Comfort Top mattress for $4.99. U&I is also a full-line Maloof dealer. Add a Maloof adjustable base, 4 style choices there. In U&I's dining room section, lots of different brands with something always new to see. One popular set with a table and 4 chairs, $649. And for the family or living room, all kinds of fun new sofa loves and sectionals. If it's in stock or it's in the showroom, it's ready to take home. There's always a better buy at U&I Furniture, downtown Logan.
KVNU weather for tonight, partly cloudy, patchy smoke, low around 50, and then sunny, patchy smoke tomorrow, high temperature in the lower 80s. Slight chance of showers and thunderstorms Thursday night. Back to sunny skies Friday, around 80 for the high. It's been to 80 this afternoon. Right now it's 79 at KVNU. KVNU weather is brought to you by the Duck Hunter. Reminding you that clothes dryer vents can get clogged with lint. Birds can even build nests in them. Let the Duct Hunter clean them out for you. Call 770-4813. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
If you're in charge of hiring a company for snow removal this winter, call American Maintenance. For reliable snow removal and salting, American Maintenance is your simple solution. Curb-to-curb services, American Maintenance has you covered. Call 512-0014. That's 512-0014. For snow removal for your commercial property, call American Maintenance. 512-0014.
We love being in Smithfield and making it easy for our friends and customers to do their banking. Hi, this is Danny Hansen, branch manager at Cache Valley Bank in Smithfield. If you don't bank with us, I invite you to discover what a great financial partner you'll find in Cache Valley Bank. I'm anxious to get to know you and invite you to stop by and say hello. Now celebrating our second year in Smithfield, located on the corner of Center and Main, Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Every Saturday morning at 9, you get information to prepare you with retirement solutions for the journey ahead. It's Smart Money Ascent with Clayton Alexander of Teton Wealth Group.
How do we solve that number one fear or that number one concern? Make sure you never run out of money.
And Teton Wealth Group's Ethan Miller.
Then, when you leave Teton, when you leave our offices, you're going to have a plan that you're both excited about.
It's where your retirement questions are answered. Smart Money Ascent, Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Coming up on a Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, we've got fantastic guests, including Liz Wheeler on what's happening in California with the recall election, and Vivek Ramaswamy on Woke Inc. and how this is infiltrating all across America. Plus, Clay updates on
the latest mess in Afghanistan. Are we going to get our people out? And COVID insanity. The CDC doesn't want you to travel on Labor Day weekend. What madness. Come hang with us. It'll be the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM at 610 AM.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that we can give our daughters everything they need to grow and learn. But not every child can focus on classes and play dates.
Nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. face hunger. That's 1 in 6. School lunch might be their only meal each day. And it's heartbreaking to imagine any child going to bed hungry. We're dreaming of a perfect day when kids can smile, play, and just be kids without worrying about where their next meal will come from. Feeding America is working to make that perfect day a reality.
Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. That food is given to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about doing things that make an ordinary day extraordinary. Learning to play an instrument, building a sandcastle, hosting tea parties. Hunger should never be an obstacle to growing up.
You can help end childhood hunger in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I hate to wrap the show up on this note, but it's kind of important. Very, very interesting to say the least. But a report out that initially made available late last Friday and finally made publicly available, i.e. you can download it if you'd like to, just yesterday. This is the official Journal of American Medical Association report on excess deaths in 2020. The journal publishes this every year, roughly at this same time for each year that passes. And by excess deaths, what they mean, and this is a way for policymakers, planners, sociologists, everyone, those in the medical profession and more, to understand basically what's going on. Sometimes in the past, excess death reports have allowed us to realize, in fact, there was a while ago, several years ago, toxins in water in Mississippi were actually revealed when excess death reports showed that the death rate there had jumped 5-6% in 1 year. People started asking questions. Eventually, they got around to looking at the water. And so this is an important thing that happens. But what was published last week, and again made publicly available via download at the link on our Facebook page, if you'd like to look at the executive summary of the report, the raw data, and more, it's all there. But the Journal of American Medical Association defines excess deaths as the number of deaths that exceed what would be expected based on averages from the previous 5 years. So they take the previous 5 years and from the death rates in those years, compile an average, and then they use that ongoing, constantly moving it up a year at a time to come up with this excess death rate. And it's a way, again, to spot anomalies, things that are happening out of the ordinary, because they break this data down by county and region and more. So what they had to say about 2020 is both absolutely shocking and not at all surprising at the same time. So death rates traditionally fluctuate 1 to 2% when we're talking excess deaths. So 1 to 2% change is the normal expectation from an annual excess death report. All of the data comes from medical offices all around the country. Anytime a death is reported through an examiner's office, through a mortuary, through all the different ways a death can be reported, it's cataloged and kept for this report. And again, the normal fluctuation is somewhere between 1 and 2% year to year based off of the previous 5 years average, or in contrast with the previous 5-year average. In 2020, 23%. So a 23% jump in deaths in the United States in contrast with the previous 5 years averaged out over the 5 years. 22.9% nationally, to be exact. Now, obviously, this is fueled by COVID-19. There were some deaths from other causes that did see an uptick as well, but they were in that 1-2% range that would be expected. Deaths from some sources that would normally be high were a bit lower. Some surprising results in this report today. Not surprising, the deaths of elderly individuals from the flu were down. Well, duh, all the mask wearing, right? You're preventing the spread of COVID-19. You're also preventing the spread of the flu. That's a great thing. But they were down within that 1-2% range. So a significant number of people, number of lives were saved by mask wearing when it comes to the flu as well, but within that 1-2% region. So it wouldn't have been super noteworthy otherwise. COVID-19, the American Medical Association said, accounted for 72% of excess deaths calculated in the year of 2020. The other 28% of the nation's excess deaths, again, deaths that are outside of a 5-year average, what you'd expect to see over the previous 5 years, some of them maybe were related and will later be found to be related to COVID-19, even if the virus wasn't originally listed on the death certificate. Things like deaths from blood clots, deaths from lung issues, things like that could eventually, be determined to be related to COVID-19 after medical examination, things like that. But they're initially cataloged by whatever the coroner, medical examiner, or mortician lists, or primary care doctor lists as cause of death. The disruptions caused by the pandemic, the report says, were another cause of the 28% they believe. Examples from this include a rise in deaths resulting from not seeking medical care. That also makes sense, tragically makes sense. People were not seeking medical care. They didn't want to go to a hospital in the worst months or weeks, depending on where you live, of the pandemic. For example, here in Utah, the worst hit us in September, and it stayed bad until January, late January, early February here in Utah. And they did see a downtick in hospital and doctor visits in general for things that could have, in the end, lack of adequate care could have caused a person's untimely demise. So the American Medical Association believes that a good chunk of that remaining 20% was COVID-19 related, although not because a person had COVID-19. 72% of the excess deaths directly attributable to COVID-19. The remaining 28%, a large chunk of that, they believe, again, is because people weren't seeking adequate care or even emergency aid Some stories I remember through the year of people staying at home after having a heart attack. There were also excess deaths in the area of fatal complications from chronic disease, such as diabetes, and behavioral health crisis that led to a suicide or drug overdose. Interestingly enough, though, one of the surprises in this study, because I think this flies against what would be kind of common sense, the suicide rate nationally actually went down. Not a lot, but it did actually go down nationally in contrast with the previous 5 years in 2020. That was an interesting thing. No explanation is offered on that, and maybe there isn't one, but an interesting little aspect of this report that surprised me. The percentage of excess deaths among non-Hispanic black individuals exceeded the share of U.S. population, reflecting vast racial disparities, the report says, in mortality due to COVID-19, and even more so in that 28% of that they believe a large fraction of that can be attributed to not seeking medical care or visiting the primary care doctor in some chronic situations. The analysis of the report says future illness and deaths from the downstream, quote-unquote, consequences of the economy could be addressed now by families and getting back to work. Obviously, that's underway if you see the unemployment numbers in most states. But also, the report recommends expanding access to health care, improving behavioral health services, and a big effort to try and bring some stability back into families that were disrupted. Also mentioned in this report is the mental health of the millions of individuals in the United States affected by the loss of a family member, a friend, a loved one, and that being tied in with maybe some economic anxiety, maybe someone in the family or yourself, you've lost a job, and then at the same time you lose a family member to COVID-19. That can actually have long-term effects. So the American Medical Association recommends to policymakers that be accounted for in public policy, saying that we could see the effects of that pop up in next year's report, i.e., the effects of that instability, economic, mental health-wise, any of that, and the millions of people affected by someone who died of COVID-19 in 2020 could affect excess death rates when the report comes out in 2022 for 2021. So death rates from several non-COVID conditions, heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and surgeries actually increased in 2020. Alongside that, 72% of excess deaths attributable to COVID-19 directly. But interestingly enough, one more time, the suicide rate down. Not a lot, again, but down in 2020. Check it out. You can download the raw data, read the executive summary for yourself. A fascinating, if heartbreaking, look at 2020 from the American Medical Association's 2021 report on 2020 of excess deaths, just published. Link to that on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
NMLS 1817019.
Got a rate over 2.9%? There's a falsehood that you should only refi if you can cut your rate by 1%. The truth is, lowering your rate by just 0.25% and making the same payment you make right now can cut years off your mortgage, saving you tens of thousands in interest. LendRight Mortgage will show you exactly how much you will save by cutting your rate by only 0.25%. Pay zero closing costs with our Freedom Loan. If your rate is over 2.9%, be smart. Stop wasting money. Lock a 30-year rate as low as 2.25% or a 15 at only 1.75%. APR 2.45 and 1.96 respectively. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com. For rates in the ones, call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com.
This is the season to stock up on oil and filters. It's the Fall Napa Gold Filter Sale at all 5 Cache Valley Napa Auto Parts stores. Napa Synthetic Blend Oil, $1.99 a quart. Seafoam Fuel Additive, $5.99 a can. Napa 15W40, $9.99 a gallon. Chevron Dello 15W40, $11.99 a gallon. These specials and a whole lot more during the Napa Gold Filter Sale, now through September 15th at your 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts stores.
Napa know-how. Napa know-how. Who do you turn to if you want to change out your qualifying wood or pellet stove? Advanced Fireplace and Stove was voted the gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah in the fireplace retrofit category. With the government's wood and pellet investment tax credit in place right now, Advanced Fireplace and Stove can help you navigate the paperwork for up to a 26% tax credit. That covers everything to have a new gas unit installed. For more information, call Advanced Fireplace and Stove, 752-7272. Online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Wrapping up today's show with I don't really know what the lesson is in all of this, or maybe there's not a single takeaway from this, but it was an experience I watched and then had personally over the last 24 hours that just keeps rattling around in my head. Yesterday on the show we talked about this during Governor Cox's it's supposed to be every 2 weeks. He hadn't had one since August 3rd. Yesterday in the morning instead of the afternoon, he and members of his COVID-19 coronavirus task force had their briefing. Part of the reason for this is the governor's office is under a lot of pressure from parents with kids in school to undo what the legislature, even at this point today, is even kind of acknowledging was a pretty big mistake, this endgame bill that banned mask mandates in schools, technically. Well, I mean, not technically, but for all intents and purposes, functionally banned mask mandates. They left the decision up to county commissioners and county councils, some of the most political people in the state and in a lot of areas at least, and also, obviously people that aren't health experts. So parents are saying the decision should have been left up to health districts and school boards, or even health districts and individual schools. But instead, the legislature made it political by making it up to health districts and final approval given to commissioners, for example. So the governor's office is under pressure for that. The legislature now feeling a bit of that heat after the governor yesterday basically put it on their shoulders and said, look, I agree with you, the public, but the legislature needs to act and they're not engaging. So the governor is having a meeting with them today, I think, maybe tomorrow, sometime this week. And they're going to meet in caucus, which means it'll be closed door. And as I said yesterday, the reason they do that is because that way lawmakers can speak freely and comments that might be dismissive about death rates and hospitalizations and things like that don't become a media story themselves. I'm actually a defender of this kind of thing, though not in this setting. In this setting, I think this discussion should be public because the public needs confidence, probably more so than ever before, that everyone's absorbing the information and on the same page. That said, they're going to meet. We'll see what happens. Robert Gerke of the Salt Lake Tribune is predicting nothing happens. There are some workarounds. The governor's office believes that it might be possible for city mayors or even certain schools to institute 30-day mask mandates, things like that. So step back 30,000-foot view here a bit on this. We're talking about buying time. The kids can't be vaccinated, under 12 at least. And the Delta variant appears to spread more easily with kids. And many more kids are having a severe illness from that virus. There's an infant on a ventilator here in Utah right now. That completely avoidable. So the concern is the models are projecting that the month of September, there could be 39,000 infections in Utah from basically, spread in schools, then going home and going to the workplace. And then we end up back in actually a worse spot than we were September of last year, which is when things really started to get the worst they had been here in Utah. So that's the concern overall. And the governor yesterday said the legislature needs to act. They're not. I don't have the power to force them to. Critics said, well, you can call a special session, but if lawmakers refuse to do anything, what's that special session going to achieve? there's a lot of different power plays involved here, but what I wanted to spotlight was something I talked about on the show. The governor taking some heat for some comments he made after his original comments during the presser yesterday. He stood up a few times during the Q&A and added thoughts to things that had been asked of doctors and the health department's epidemiologists and all of that. And Governor Cox said yesterday that this is a near quote. Well, this is an actual quote, this first part. He said, the anti-maskers and the extreme maskers need to get over themselves. And what he meant by that was he's getting some heat for the false equivalency there, and I think that's justified because, what the worst thing an extreme masker is going to do is annoy you. An anti-masker is out there possibly spreading deadly disease. So not exactly the same thing. So the governor acknowledged that after the fact and said, I should have chosen my words more carefully. But he also took heat for something he said yesterday, which is he stood up and he basically said, look, the quote that you've seen in the media probably and even heard on our show yesterday, he said, look, masks are not that effective. In the context of what they were talking about, it's clear what Governor Cox meant is that masks are not the solution. Vaccines are. Vaccination will end this pandemic. Once we get to a certain point, the virus can't spread enough. This is common sense. You don't have to be an epidemiologist to understand this. We also have a history of this with different diseases, polio, a malaria vaccine around the corner, HIV vaccine around the corner. We've had success with some very serious diseases and vaccinations. We know how it works, right? So the governor was trying to say vaccines are the solution, but people are acting like masks are the solution. And his point in the context of what they were discussing is kind of important because what he was trying to say is, look, we're having trouble. There's this group out there that is vaccine hesitant, and they're not super political. They're not in the Trump camp. In fact, he pointed out some of them maybe even lean left. There are people that are busy, that haven't found time, that are also concerned about having to miss a day or two of work if they happen to have some flu-like symptoms or serious reaction to the vaccine. Many people do. It's far less serious than a reaction to COVID-19, but still could be a day or two off work. He said there are a lot of reasons people have put this off. Those are the people we can reach. We can't reach the diehard Trump supporters. We can't reach, and we don't need to reach the people who ran out and were first in line for this. The people we need to reach are the people in the middle that just have been busy or just haven't found time or just for this reason or that reason. Maybe they're concerned and want to hold off and see how things go. Maybe they're waiting for that official FDA approval we got just last week. That was the point the governor was trying to make. What made it into the media and the reports, even from the Salt Lake Tribune and the Deseret News, Governor Cox says masks not effective. Critics, including his own epidemiologist on his task force, lit him up for that, for saying it. The governor acknowledged this was poorly worded. I had a conversation with the governor. It was public. It was on Twitter. You can see it on the For the People Twitter account. And I basically said, I think this is what the governor was trying to say, that people need to know there's a benefit to getting vaccinated. And when we approach this as if, we should all just put our masks back on in every setting for the rest of the year, it's harder to say to people who haven't been vaccinated there's a benefit. There clearly is a benefit, but it's harder to say that to them if we're talking about all the rest of this more. That's what the governor was trying to say. And it's an excellent point. And he acknowledged in his conversation with me and some other things he's tweeted out, it was poorly worded. He wishes he could reel how he phrased it back in. But what's interesting to me about this is that lost in all of this is the governor having a really good point. That's gone from this whole discussion. What the discussion instead has been is the reports now on the outrage online to what the governor said and how it was interpreted initially. Like I say, I don't know what the takeaway here is. I don't know what the big lesson here is. But it's something that has just kind of rattled around my brain since I watched it happen. The governor had a really good point. There is a benefit to getting vaccinated. One of those benefits is maybe we don't need to wear those masks in as many places. Once we get to, where we need to get. People need that thing to hope for, right? That's what the governor was trying to say. You wouldn't know that from reading any of the media coverage. And granted, in an elected official in that position, you got to be very careful about how you say things. I understand that. The governor himself acknowledged that when we were talking today. But, man, I'd hate to be in those shoes. Either way, hopefully the governor's original point is what settles when the dust clears on all of this. Check it out. I've linked to some of the coverage and our conversation with the governor here on our Facebook page and Twitter account. That's our show for today. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
The newsmakers, the stories.
This is a situation that is rapidly spinning out of control.
Get it all here. News Talk KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.